with that, we're going to go ahead and start with the very first thing you should always do is check your settings. So this is objective 1, understanding Gmail settings. And this will take us some time to navigate through Gmail settings. Settings is something you should always check throughout any application that applies to Google Workspace as well. And Gmail is probably the most opportunities to adjust the Gmail the way you want it. And there's so many settings inside Gmail. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with settings. We're going to go to your Gmail, and you'll notice at the top right-hand corner, there is a gear. Gear equals settings. Gear equals properties. It's the behind the scenes of the application. The same applies within Google Workspace as well. So you'll want to go ahead and click on the settings. Once you click on that, you will then see that you have a newer option that is new to most of us. Is called quicker. It's not quicker, it's quick settings. And you can see right here that you have some ways to quickly adjust, obviously, your settings right here without going into the greater detail in the back end of your settings. So you can see here, there is one that a couple that I want to point out. Default is probably what many of you would probably like. Why? Because you probably come from an Outlook or an Office scenario. So you might want to check default. You might want to check your density. Comfortable, notice when I'm changing these, actually it depends. Default, excuse me, I correct myself. Default is probably not the one you do like, excuse me. Why? Because maybe you don't like to see the attachment there, okay? You'll notice that it's just a little bit bigger in the expansion, okay? But maybe some of you notice right here where you look at Training 5 agenda, it's got the Google Doc, kind of adding a whole bunch of more real estate, taking up more space of my real estate. You might want to try compact. Now look at this one right here. Notice the difference in compact. It takes away it doesn't actually remove the attachment. It's still there, but in a very similar paper clip exposure that you're used to seeing in Outlook. Simple little change can make a huge difference. If you think in your emails kind of look so cluttered and messy, change it to compact or comfortable, whatever your whatever your preference is. And that's something I need to make a point out. Your settings is your preference. It's your preference. I might give you some recommendations, but it really comes down to your preference. Okay. The other thing is you can quickly change your theme here. Again, what color? What do you like? That's your choice. We will dive deeper into inbox types in the future trainings. But you'll notice probably many of you, again, if you're coming from the Outlook world, you might choose to do default. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is one of those that I would strongly recommend checking out priority for future. That is something I even posted on the currents page. Priority inbox is a great place to make your inbox more efficient. But we're not going to talk much about inbox today, but know that it's there. The other thing is you can quickly add the reading pane. Now, I'm not a reading pane fan, but again, I'm going to repeat myself quite a bit today. If you were from the Outlook world, you probably would like the reading pane option. So you could quickly add the reading pane, which just gives you a quick preview of the email that you select. Conversation view, let's talk about that for a second. This is a big question I get. What is conversation view? First thing, I need to defend Google, because when we went to Google Live, many people thought that is conversation view, and they made conversation view. Incorrect. Did you know you can have conversation view inside Outlook, inside many other email boxes? So this isn't a Gmail thing. It is a email thing, if that makes sense. So what is conversation? It groups the emails together. So I wanted to have an example for you today. This is an example right here. It groups it by the subject, and everybody's responding by that subject. So right here, you'll notice there is one right here. And you'll see that it started the conversation with this very first email. Trainer 9, which is me today. I'm in Trainer 9 account. I started the email, and I sent it to my own email, okay? Then Jolene and Trainer 5 also replied to it. So there's like 3 different people, but it's all grouped together, okay? That can really reduce the number of emails. Now, some of you, actually, it's divided in the Google team. Half of us like conversation view, half of us doesn't. It doesn't matter. It's just a preference. Now, I find it, and I know Jolene would speak in behalf of this as well. She likes conversation view. It groups the messages together. Okay. And why is that important? Because now in the 5 different emails that people have sent, and the same conversation can get really overwhelming. Your inbox could go from 50 unread if you don't have conversation view versus 3, right? It doesn't matter. It just groups them by the subject. Groups them by the subject. Now, I'm not going to go over this because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I promise you, this is why I gave you the objectives, is there is a great resource for you. And I'll go back to that in a minute about conversation view. I strongly recommend that you check it out. You can know if you're in conversation view by, obviously, you can see a little number next to the email. Like that's how many emails have been grouped together by the subject. It's also good to know that you always should have a good subject line in your email. Okay, that is one place you can change it. And the beauty is today you can have conversation view on, and tomorrow you can have conversation view off, or just you can adjust it quickly whenever you want. And that's why they put it in the quick settings. So again, we'll show you where that's also in the big settings and the behind the scenes settings. But this is what you can quickly change inside your Gmail depending on your preference. I noticed my camera is crooked. Oh, well, we're going to not deal with that. Okay, so let's go. Now that we're in quick settings, we'll go ahead and see all settings. So we're going to just kind of go in order. We're not going to hit all the settings today. We're going to go and start with general. You'll notice there's several different tabs inside here. I will try to blow it up just to give you guys a little bit better view. You'll notice there's several different settings in here. We're going to start, or tabs, excuse me, and settings, I guess, but we're going to start with the general tab. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory, like the first one. What is your language? I don't know. I think probably most of us in the state of Iowa speak just English. So that would be a pretty easy one to change, but know that you can. Okay. Phone numbers. Well, we live in the United States. That's pretty self-explanatory. As you see, I'm just kind of going down in order here. So I'm just going to kind of zip through some of these. Maximum page size. This is how many conversations do you want on your page. Now, again, this is what I would define as your preference. This is your preference. I'm going to stick with 50. How many conversations do you want maximum on your page? Okay. This one you should have. It's now used to be a lab, so it wasn't part of the Gmail app itself. So now we have the option to truly be part of the Gmail app. Is the undo send. Now, I don't know about you. I need a conscious sometimes a little bit more than 5 seconds. So undo send. Make sure you have that on, which you automatically do have it on, but I prefer to have a conscience sometimes for 30 seconds. Sometimes I might make a mistake. I shouldn't have said what I said. I strongly recommend that you change it to 30 seconds. Undo send 30 seconds. I'll show you after we set these settings how some of these actually work on the front end of Gmail. Now, the other thing that could maybe save your job is default reply behavior. Sometimes reply all is not the best option for you. So I would go ahead and select your default behavior to be reply. Go ahead and select reply. Now, I don't think it's best practice. It's still crooked. The best practice to do reply all. Okay. So sometimes you shouldn't do reply all. The other thing you have here is hover actions. I think by default it's already on, but if you don't have it on, always enable hover actions. And again, you might not know what this is. I'm going to go back and show you, but it pretty much defines it here. It quickly gain access to the archive, delete, mark as read, and snooze controls as you hover an email. Okay, so we'll show you that in a minute, but I would go ahead and enable that. If you don't like it, now you know how to go back into your settings and disable those hover actions. Again, I've been using Google for a long time. I know the definition of archive, which we'll talk more about here in the future, but many of us don't really understand archive yet. And so regardless, for my 10 years of experience, I still prefer the send and archive button to be hidden. Okay. So I'm just going to, you need to trust me, go ahead and hide the send and archive button in reply. Okay. Send and archive button in reply. Now, if you do like that, that is going to help you clean out your emails a little bit faster, but I wouldn't worry about that right now. This would be your so-called homework assignment. You would need to go ahead and change your default text. Now, some of us is a narrow writer, likes Georgia, you know, whatever font you get to express who you are, you could go ahead and do so. So what this does is you would adjust the text. So every time you hit compose, it would be that default text that you just love. And so you don't have to spend time on formatting, right? You get to work on the content. So this is just a basic editor. You can obviously change it to small, medium, large. Obviously, you want to keep it in the black format for accessibility and so on. But whatever suits your fancy, I guess, go ahead and adjust your default text style to express the way you want it to be. The next one is images. Go ahead and always display external images. I just think that's just good practice. I don't want to see that little icon or even the pop-up to say, do you want to display it? So I just like less clicks. So I always display external images. Jolene will keep her mouth shut on this because she knows very well that grammar is not my thing, and she helps me out a lot. But Gmail also helps me a lot as well. Grammar, spelling, autocorrect, why not? So you can actually enable the grammar, spelling, and autocorrect to help you be more efficient, and it looks like you're a better writer inside Gmail. Many of you like the Grammarly app. That is not allowed in the state of Iowa. But again, this is where I remind you that Google's already helping you in a lot of ways within the mind of grammar. So use those features, grammar, spelling, and autocorrect, and make sure excuse me, I keep saying the wrong word. Go ahead and make sure that is turned on for each one of those. Speaking of improvements, the next two is just, again, help to predict your writing suggestions and also personalize your writing style. We all have our different personalities. Google's also using its artificial intelligence to help you compose emails more effectively and efficiently. Go ahead and turn writing suggestions on and personalization on. Again, you can turn it off if you don't like it, but why not? These are things that can help us compose emails faster. Now, conversation view is back on the table here. This is the other place. Again, it just pretty much says it what I says. Sets whether emails of the same topic are grouped together. Now, I can explain that 5 million times and some people still don't understand, and it's really not the easiest thing to train. So I leave it to other people to train it. That's my goal. So on this objectives that you have access to, I do want to remind you, these the three resources, 2 are videos, and they're short videos. And 1 is a document that really breaks it down for you, okay? So I strongly encourage, if you think I really might want to try conversation view, or I'm using it, but I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, what I would do is encourage you to check out these resources, and it just goes over it really, really well. Conversation view is one of those hands-on trainings, like I'd rather send you an email and then you can kind of see how things go. But regardless, I promise you, I provided you many resources to get that aha moment as we navigate through conversation view. So please check those out. Moving forward, the next couple ones, the nudges, the smart reply, smart features, personalization, other Google products, just turn them on. In a nutshell, I'm just going to summarize those. It really means Google will use some of its artificial intelligence to help you. The first one is nudges. You can see that it says suggest emails to reply to, suggest emails to follow up on. It doesn't do it for all those emails, but for example, if I sent an email to Jolene and I haven't heard from her for a couple days, I forgot about it, to be honest. It might nudge me saying, hey, you haven't heard from Jolene for 3 days. Do you want to follow up? That's a nudge, okay? So it could be that way or the other way around as well. So definitely nudges, why not? It could be that saving grace for you. Smart reply, it just those suggestions such as Jolene says, do you want to do lunch? I don't even have to type, yes, let's do lunch. It says, yes, great. It will automatically have a smart reply option. So all I have to do is click, yes, sounds great. So have that and other smart features and personalizations and other Google products. Again, great ways to use artificial intelligence within chat, video content, just experience your authentic self some more. Now, desktop notifications. Here's the key. I get this question quite a bit sometimes. First of all, you have to have the app open. So this also falls under calendar and Gmail. You want those notifications? Guess what? You need to have that app open. So I have a trick for you. Okay. If I want to keep Gmail open at all times, I would pin my tab. Okay. What does that mean? I no longer have the nasty X to accidentally close my tab, my Gmail. Okay. I can do this on any website, any Google Workspace app. I can just right click on the tab and I choose Pin Tab. And now you'll notice when I right click on any tab, I get the option to pin it and I no longer have that nasty X. So I can quickly find my Gmail on the left-hand side. And now the Gmail will probably stay open because I won't accidentally close because I got tab overload, right? Because we've all been there. Tab anxiety, that's a true thing. So what you need to do then is once that app is open, then you have some options. Then you need to know that. You just need to know that's how it works, okay? But most of you probably already have desktop notifications on. And sometimes you get frustrated, like, why am I not getting them? It's because you have not left the app open. So now that we know that the app has to stay open, and I gave you a trick to do so by pinning the tab, then you notice you have some options here. New mail notifications on, or do you want important mail notifications on? I don't know how you fall into that category. It's up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and just select new, and you can go ahead and click enable desktop notifications. And then you will see then you get a pop-up. If you haven't done this, you'll get a pop-up because now you need to allow it in your Chrome browser and click allow. So now I have the notifications on. You can see if you have audio, you can have some different types of audio. I don't know what half of these sound like, but you do have that option now for pop-up notifications. What's the key? Probably most of you have this set up, but you have to have the app open. Otherwise, it doesn't know to do it, okay? Now, stars. Let's compare it to the Outlook world. You have an Outlook flags, so you could always flag an email. Well, Google didn't like flags. They prefer stars for some reason. So now you have the option to star an item, which could be in a very similar way, flag it. Now, flag does not work like sending it out like you might have an Outlook, but you do have the option to have an incoming email with a star, or you could color code them different colors. Like if my boss sent me an email, I might want to stand out in red. So I'd pick a red star, okay, or whatever. So if you were following along in hands-on, I would recommend that you should at least try a couple different stars. I'm just going to go ahead and drag the red star up. I'm going to drag the purple. And notice you have all these options here for different options for stars. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into stars and searching today, but for those that want to, again, we're going to remind you, again, some of this will be addressed in searching, but you will see in here, we will talk more about stars, but you can actually search by different star types. And so there's some options in there for you. You'll see there's a whole bunch of information how to search by stars. So, and we'll learn more about it in the future, but just making sure that you're aware of the resource there for stars. But if this was truly a hands-on, I would definitely recommend that you would have the red and the yellow and so on, and you would learn how to do that. The next thing is you're going to go to keyboard. I changed my camera because my computer gets really screwy and now I'm really messing up there. I don't know how bad it looks for you guys, but it's driving me crazy. Okay, keyboard shortcuts. You want to have your keyboard shortcuts on. I'll talk more about that in the future, but again, just trust me on this. Go ahead and turn keyboard shortcuts on. Now, if you're new to Gmail, I recommend that you do the button labels as text. If you are struggling with what a button does and the hover option is really not giving you what you need, don't worry about it. Google's got your back, and you're going to want to switch it to text. Trust me, even in my personal Gmail account, I still have it as text just because I don't want to remember what that button does. I just rather read it and I know what action I'm taking and not even question it. So if you're one of those, which probably a lot of people are, change your buttons to be text inside Gmail, then you know what action you're going to be doing. So again, if you don't like it after this, you know exactly how to go back and change it. This would be your homework assignment. You could just go ahead and add a picture. Again, some agencies require you to have the agency logo. Some will be fine with your own personal picture. Please follow your own agency guidelines, as that is different for each agency. But again, strongly encouraged to have some kind of identification in that picture. Create contacts for autocomplete. I would just say, yeah, when I send to a new person, let's say Jolene's a new person and she's outside the state of Iowa, and then I send in here an email to her personal even, it would automatically auto add that to my contacts. I don't want to go back and physically do that. That is not something I want to do. Just add it automatically to my contacts. Okay, that would be more for people outside the state of Iowa because we already have those in our directory. This would be like working with vendors or so on. So unless you manually like that extra work, you could do that, choose add myself, but I don't like extra work. So signature. Now, again, this falls into your own agency guidelines. Everybody has their own so-called template they're supposed to do. But what I can tell you is sometimes the formatting to make a signature look professional is kind of tricky. This is where Jolene did this great job before I even got started, is inside this document. If we're following along in order here, you'll notice this would be, if this was hands-on, would be your homework assignment. But you can make a copy of this template. So you would file, make a copy, and then you would customize your information the way it is. Obviously, many of you are probably not OCIO users, but maybe you are. You could actually use this if you choose to, but you can use this table. This is a table, and it actually formats really, really well inside your Gmail. So you would just copy this. You notice it's a table. You would copy this information into your signature. This will make it much more formatted correctly, the right way I say that, just format it correctly. Many of us struggle inside of making that a good format inside our signature. If you use this table size, it will copy and paste really well. So you would just make a copy of the signature, obviously put your name down, put your address down. You could actually change the logo to something you would want, obviously your agency logo, or again, if your agency has its own, you could just use this table information just to copy and paste it over. Again, follow your agency guidelines. We're just trying to assist you. But the instructions on how to get an effective and very nice looking signature is on this document. So again, I said there's a plethora of resources on here. I wasn't joking. Also, multiple signatures. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you feel, some of us have different hats. I do. Sometimes I am an IT project investment tech person. Sometimes I am the Google support specialist. Sometimes I'm an Octave representative, right? Different hats, right? So really, sometimes I might want to have my signature be different depending on what I'm answering. You do have the capability of adjusting a signature and having multiple signature options. So again, what hat am I on? I can adjust my signature to actually fit that category. So again, you have that capability. And again, more resources there. But really, in reality, to create a new signature, you just click Create a New, name it. I'm just going to say the main signature. And again, you can just put, copy and paste that information, whatever you want to do inside here. Always send yourself an email just to kind of see how the signature actually looks. Sometimes it might look different and so on. So just make sure it looks good. So be aware of that. But you can actually create another one. And you could say my second hat, right? And so then you have the different options for different signatures depending on what hat you have on in that particular email. So you have multiple signatures that are available there. It is much better than it used to be. So there is some good rich text formatting. So you can add in a good looking signature. So again, I'm not going to spend time on how to do that. Most of us know how to do that. You do have the option to have your signature default. So like I kind of already started that concept, right? If this is my main one, I'm just going to put main just so we know. Main trainer 9. And then I would say use my main one. And I can choose if I want to have my signature appear even on replies. That is, again, up to you. Always on a new message, I strongly encourage, it's just good practice to have a signature, just so you know. I kind of overdo it probably. I probably don't need my signature on both, on the reply and forward as but that is up to you. But you do want to make sure your signature defaults. It's either in the new emails for sure, and up to you on the reply if you want a signature to appear or not, and so on. The other thing is insert your signature before quoted text. I have a preference, but that's up to you. You'll notice sometimes in emails you have like a little quotation mark. Sometimes people will have the signature below that quotation mark, the quoted text thing, or the line, I'm sorry, but it shows sometimes as a quote, the dash, you'll have it underneath. I don't like that. If I put a signature in there, I want them to see who I am. But again, if you don't, then you can actually just leave it unchecked, or you can actually insert the signature above the quoted text in replies. It's up to you. So go ahead and just trust me on the next one, show indicators. This, we'll talk more about it, but if you don't have it, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you want to turn it on, you'll see what it does. It just gives you more indication. It displays an arrow, a yellow arrow sometimes, by messages sent to my address, not my mailing list. A double arrow is by messages sent only to me. So it's depending if you're using those indicators or not. But if you see a double arrow, that means it was only sent to me. So if it's only sent to me, probably I'm the only one that's going to reply to it, right? So maybe a little more urgent in my mind, right? So kind of be aware of that. So why not? To be more efficient, I'm going to go ahead and show those indicators on. Snippets. This just gives you a quick view of the message. Obviously, sometimes we might want to see that. I like to kind of see the beginning of the conversation, even in my inbox, without opening it. That's my opinion. If you just go by subject line, that's fine. You would have to select no snippets. Now, unfortunately, like my husband hardly does subject lines when he sends me an email. So that no subject line is not going to help me, right? So I prefer to at least see a snippet of what he's trying to tell me, because there are other users in the state that do the same thing. So again, I strongly recommend to show snippets. I hope the next one is soon for you. It was just for me, so that's why I would jump on my step today with lots of energy. Just got back with vacation. So this is where you would turn your out of office on in a sense of email respondent. So for example, I was gone last week. I turned my vacation responder on for the time I was going to be gone. Now, if Jolene sent me a message during that time, she would then receive an email saying, hey, I'm out of office. Here's where you need to do blah, 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 do a ServiceNow ticket. Okay. Then it sent an email to the person that sent me an email. Okay. Now, some of you may be a little more advanced and maybe know something about Google Calendar out of office. Please know that's two separate things. Okay. So if you are truly going to be out of office, which I hope for good reasons, you need to turn this on. This is good practice, right? Send an email, vacation, I'm out. Please contact who, right? And then there's a calendar out of office, and you should be doing that as well. Two separate things. Do not get those confused. Okay. So gone in email, make sure you turn your vacation responder on for that time frame and set a custom message. Then you can choose only send a response to people in the state of Iowa. That's up to you, or send it to people in my contacts. Okay, that's your preference. Okay. One place, this is very rare in Google Land, but you actually do have to save your preferences. So go ahead and save changes. Now, before I jump into showing you more things, I just want to recap. So for those that like, whoa, that was fast, I don't know. The good news is I pretty much went through it. You'll notice a lot of times like undo send, your preference, 5, 10, 15, 20, you can determine that. So it's pretty much written down in the order, a general tab. So please use this script to help you And again, use the key to help know what you have more resources for you at your fingertips. So we just got through the general tabs. Settings in Gmail is a little frustrating. It's a lot. Okay. We're going to go back to settings, and then we're going to go to the chat meet tab in settings, advanced tab, labels tab, and theme tab. So we're going to go back into settings, quickly go through those. We're going to go through those, and then once you've done that, then we're going to then show what we have changed inside our Gmail. So quickly, just going to go back to settings. So we're just going to go to the gear, see all settings. And now we're not going to do general. We just did this. And the good thing is what we're talking about today is really just a one and done. But I also want to remind you, it's important to always go back and check your settings periodically. Google likes to change things. Change is not a naughty word. It's exciting. Things are good happening. So definitely you'll want to check them once in a while, or maybe you want to try something new. Just make sure you check out your settings periodically within Gmail. Now we're going to go into the chat and meet, and this is part of the new integrated workspace. The new integrated workspace, what that does, which we'll talk more in our future trainings, is where we allow Gmail and chat and meet all be part of our Gmail app. Okay, we're not going to dive too much in there, but we want to get our interface the way we like it and how we want to design it. So one thing, strongly encouraged to have Google Chat on. So we're in the chat and meet tab. We're in the chat and meet tab. And you want to have Google Chat on. Once you have that, then you want to manage your chat settings. You can go ahead and click on that. And this is kind of your default. And I pretty much leave it to the default. You would allow chat notifications, open chat pop-ups for new messages. That just gives it a lot easier to use. Do you want sound? Some people might not want to. None, or you can select any of these random. I really don't know what piggyback is. Curious. Check one of these options for you for sound. The other thing is email notifications. Receive an email if if you haven't read a message that mentioned you. What I mentioned really means in chat is like an @ Jolene. That means I mentioned Jolene specifically in that chat. Now, if Jolene was gone for the rest of the afternoon, if she had her settings turned on this way, she would then receive an email saying, hey, someone mentioned me. I better go back and read that chat because I haven't opened that chat yet. So I don't know about you, but I need those reminders. So definitely do that. You have other options if you choose. You can turn it off, but again, I just don't see the reason why. The other ones is you can obviously block people. I hope it's not your coworker down the street, but you can block spaces, which again, we're not going to dive into this, but again, it's important to know that you can go to notifications as well, notification settings inside your settings, but there's also another way we'll learn in the integrated workspace training, which is the 3rd session, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and done. Now, this is your preference. Jolene likes the chat position on the left side. I like the chat position on the right. The thing is, we both had valid arguments. She likes the chat because she can reduce it and have more real estate. I like to see it up all the time. So again, preference. There's no wrong answer, but what I do, if you're like, I don't know if I really like it on the left, if I really don't like it on the right, I'm not sure, this is where you get to go back and change it. So I'm going to do my preference because I'm doing the training, but Joe would be like laughing at me right now. She's like, keep it on the left. But I'm going to give you the idea what it looks like on the right. Most of you probably already have it on the left as the default. Okay. So I'm going to change mine to the right. The other thing is show meet section in the main menu. Yes, we can access, most of us are meeting virtually. Obviously, many of them are working hybrid or working constantly remotely. Now we're probably just joining Google Meet. So you can actually join a Google Meet directly from Gmail. And so show that section so you can find it. And we'll show you that in a minute. Again, in the Gmail settings, you do need to click Save. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save Changes. All right, we got a couple more to go. We're going to go back to the settings, go to See All Settings. And this time, we're going to the Advanced tab. So again, Advanced, which is all the way to the right, all the way to the right. Now, some of you maybe have a personal Gmail and like, I never knew it was advanced. Well, the good news is it used to be called Labs. I'm not sure if that's good news, but it used to be called Labs. It's no longer Labs, which means that it's no longer temporary. We don't know how long it's going to be supported. The good news, it's part of the Gmail app. It's part of it now. So it's no longer, it might work or it might not work. It's truly part of the Gmail app. So advanced tabs, there are some options here for you. Now, I'm just going to quickly go over these. Auto advance is I'm going to kind of read it so I don't get off tangent here. Show the next message instead of your inbox after you delete it, archive, or mute it. It means it'll just go to the next message. I'm on the fence on that one. I don't like doing that because I don't usually ever go through my emails that way. So that, again, is up to you. My preference, disable it. It's just my preference. But again, if you think that might be something you'd be interested in, go for it. And the next one, if you fall into like a billing specialist or administrative assistants or HR, you might find yourself like always sending the same message over and over again. And you're like, oh, I just wish I had a template or a canned response for that. Good news, Google has that capability for you. My previous life, I have had a lot of previous lives, but I was a billing specialist. I was also a secretary. So what I would have to do is send something that was always the same. And then I would just have to tweak the amount, or I'd have to tweak who I'm sending it to, but it was the same message all the time, right? So you have that option inside Google in Gmail called templates. Okay, it used to be called canned responses. So if that's something that you think falls into your job description, turn templates on. The next one is custom keyboard shortcuts. I believe this probably falls into the 10% even use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. And then there's probably like 1% that might customize a keyboard shortcut. So I'm just going to tell you right now, you probably fall into the disable option. Now, I kind of like this next one just because it doesn't really do anything in the sense of my how I work Gmail, but it's a nice visual icon to let me know how many unread messages are in my inbox. And so it just gives me a quick idea of, oh my goodness, I have 74 in my inbox that I haven't even opened. So I would enable that. And once you do that, go ahead and hit Save Changes. Then we're going to go back into your settings. So again, if you have not found a theme here in the beginning, is to really get the email set up the way, the Gmail set up the way that you want it. And not only the way you want it, but I'm asking you and challenging you like, oh, I'm not sure I like this, but maybe I can make this more efficient. Now I know where to go change these settings and play with it, right? It's trial and error. It truly is trial and error. I didn't find the correct inbox type until like the third time. I'm like, I don't like this yet. I don't like this yet. So just remember, there's nothing that has to stay this way. So you can always go back and change it. And now you have a reference point of where you kind of were and where you're going now. Okay, the next one is labels. So go ahead and go to labels. So in labels, we have what we call our system labels. And our system labels are kind of hidden inside our Gmail by default. I don't recommend that. Okay, this is a question that I get. The more we understand Gmail and the more we understand archive and a few other things, you're like, where's my all mail? I don't even know where my all mail is. Well, stop hiding it under the more button. So if you like don't like even know that little more button is in your email and you're like, well, what is underneath there? Let's stop putting it underneath there. Let's move it up. So how do we move those system labels to the top? Well, our system labels are inbox, starred, snoozed, important, sent, scheduled, drafts, all mail, spam, trash. I'm going to sneeze here in a minute. Sorry. So inbox, starred, and so on are your system labels. We want to show them. We don't want to hide them underneath the more button. So we want to show them. So go ahead and make sure that show is bold. Show is bold. So now we'll notice that all of my system labels are, the word show is in bold. Okay. Obviously you can change this and customize it, but I want to give you a visual on how that changes. Okay. Now, I am not a big fan of categories. Now, my personal Gmail, I am, okay? Because I have maybe signed up for a few advertisements like Old Navy, Beachbody, a few other things, you know, and I like those categories. They're like, that's a promotion. Oh, that's important. That's my bank bill, right? So whatever the case may be. So categories do help me in my personal Gmail account. But my work one, everything's important, okay? And I don't really want them to categorize that for me. Now, maybe you are signed up for a lot of groups and maybe categories might apply to you, but I'm going to guess probably not too much. So in this case, I would make sure that you have it hide selected and bold if you don't have it already. So make sure hide is selected for all your categories, okay? So hide should be bold for your categories. If you have categories, And the same thing in your message list. Those are the things that you see like, this belongs to social. That would be like Twitter, Facebook, right? It doesn't really apply in our Google work account, right? It does in our personal life, okay? So you might want to have those bold and the word hidden bold, excuse me. Now, we're not going to talk about labels here so much today, but I believe so. Make sure we do labels in the next one. But this is where you would also find your list of labels for all your labels. So you might see some labels underneath there if you're in that screen now. Okay, so that is where your bin of labels are as well. And labels by definition is a sticky note by definition of you could put sticky notes on your emails, okay? Probably compared to Microsoft Office would be folders, but I don't want you really to get stuck on that because they're not quite the same, okay? But that is your bin of labels. Now, we don't really save here because it saves as we go. And I think we're at our last stop, and that's themes. And I'm not going to change mine because I prefer the white and the basic when I'm training. But this is where you would go to themes. Also, we saw themes in quick settings. You can always go to themes, set a theme, or go to your quick settings and select something that gives you a smile for your work spot. Okay, so be careful though. Sometimes it's hard to see. So just choose something that is easy on your eyes if it's something that you need to be concerned on. But I'm going to stick with the basic just for the fact that I'm training, and that just makes it easier. Alrighty. So what has taken place here? So we have done a lot of changes. So we're actually, if you're following along on the Google Doc, we have went through majority of the settings. Some of them we come back at a later time to adjust like our inbox types and some other things as we get more advanced within Gmail. But we got kind of our Gmail list set the way that's maybe recommended or so on. Now, I'm going to kind of jump out of place here a little bit, but at the bottom of this document, some of you, maybe many of you, I don't know, might have actually switched from Outlook to Gmail. Maybe you came from a different agency that maybe uses Office, or you maybe come from a company that used Microsoft Outlook, or maybe you just really loved Outlook and you're like, I really wish I could set up my Gmail that way. We really don't train this very much because most of us have been on a Google Workspace for quite some time. But we do want to provide you resources in case that does apply to you. There is an Objective 7 in that Google Doc. There is many ways to actually set up your Gmail or some recommendations on how to set it up, very similar to Outlook. We kind of hit some of those, such as like the reading pane. We talked about conversation view is not a Gmail thing, it's an Outlook thing as well. You know, some of those things that you might want to check. And so Google has provided you a great resource to compare. So definitely, and just giving you a good understanding of the differences. Like, so if you're trying to compose an email in Outlook, how you compose it in Gmail. So I just want to make note, I don't know who that falls into my current in this live stream, or even those that are watching the video, but this is very important. I send this resource to anybody that kind of starts new in our agency, because I'm like, you might have came from the Outlook world, and this does a really good job to actually compare. And I'm just going to give you some aha moments. So again, if that applies to you, please check out switching from Outlook to Gmail. And the reason why I'm mentioning it right now, it really kind of applies to how you set up your settings the way you like it. So kind of keep that. And again, I hit some of the big ones, such as the reading pane and so much more. So what we're going to do is just take a quick tour in our Gmail. And you'll notice that remember I mentioned the stars. The stars are the things that I want to make note of that have changed inside your Gmail now that we've changed some of our settings. I want to really point those out. So that's why there's a star, because it probably did give you a different look inside your Gmail, or it definitely did for mine because I changed them. So we're just going to go and do a tour of our Gmail. So we're just going to start from the left and go all the way around. It's just kind of what we're going to do. Before we do that, though, do make note if you changed your theme. Obviously, it's not going to be the same anymore. You changed it. So mine's the white. I stayed the white. It's going to stay white, right? But I could obviously change it to give it some flair. With that, the other thing is in the top left-hand corner, I call it the hamburger, okay? I don't know. There's probably a better name for it, but that's what I call it. This allows you to notice that it gives you more real estate inside your Gmail. Notice if I click on it now, it actually brings over my labels here now. Sometimes I don't need to see my labels. I don't need to see that. I have no reason. I want more real estate and go from there. That's one of the reasons why Jolene likes to chat on the left-hand side, okay? So you do have that capability to provide more real estate by expanding your hamburger. I like to make it simple. You'll also notice the compose button, which we'll come back to that in a minute. But that's where you can compose an email, which I'll teach you some tricks on that later. Notice now your system labels, your inbox, which is always at the top, your starred, your snooze, the important, the sent. How many times have you looked for your sent, your scheduled, your drafts? Oh my goodness, the all mail. And spam. How many people have asked me where the trash can is? And I'd always have to tell them it's under the more button and click there. If everybody did my preference, then we wouldn't have this problem, right? The trash can is going to be easy. It's a before the more button, okay? So your important system labels are quick and easy and accessible at the top, okay? So make note of that. If that's not one of the best tips and tricks I give you, I don't know what else I can give you. So that is one of the changes. Now, under the more button would be where you would see your list of labels that you might have already created, like, you know, Google support training, I don't know, whatever you have, right? So that's where your other labels are. All right, let's just kind of continue and move over to the right. Now, this is what I moved my chat on the right side. Now, Jolene has probably got the right decision, but her chat, because her might have been the left, is on the left, would appear right here, okay? Well, right over here. I decided to go to the right. Either way, no wrong answer, just no left, right, correct? So the other thing we did is we turned on chat, and which also includes spaces, was formerly known as rooms, but we also have now, since I recommended strongly, to make sure you have your meet option appear. This means if I had any meetings, I could actually join my meetings directly from here if it's a Google Meet meeting, okay? Saves me lots of clicks, right? We're in our Gmail is the most app we're in all the time, right? So also you have your chats here. We're not going to talk about chat and spaces and Meet, but that is the visual change that you have now added to your Gmail integrate or Gmail if you haven't done so earlier today. The other thing that's a hidden gem is the sidebar. Okay, the sidebar gives you capability of accessing other Google Workspace apps without leaving your Gmail. Hallelujah. So, but some people don't always see that sidebar. So the sidebar is over here. You'll notice it'll access your calendar without opening another tab. You can access Keep, you can access your task, and the most recent one is Contacts. And this was a huge sore when Contacts was no longer available very easily inside our new Gmail integrated or Gmail interface. And so now we have Contacts back inside our Gmail. So that's huge, but you have to make sure you see your sidebar appear and make sure you don't hide your sidebar. So you can hide your sidebar, but I don't recommend it. So if you don't see the sidebar, don't panic. You do have it. Just go at the bottom right-hand corner, and you will see a little show side panel, and you will see that. Now that side panel is not only in Gmail, it's also available in Drive, in Calendar. So be using that sidebar, okay? Lots less clicks, that's for sure. We'll just keep moving up. You have your little icon, would be your logo, your Google account information there. I call this the waffle. I guess I like food, hamburger and waffle. Well, there's no doubt about that. But the waffle is where you access your other Google Workspace apps that you can click on. So this is another way to access a different app within your Google account. We already know the gear equals settings. So the gear equals settings is where you would go to. Don't forget, Google is right there to help you. You can always find a help button within your Google Workspace apps, and it lets you actually click on training, updates, and so much more if you choose to. So you've had this right at your fingertips to learn, but I'm so glad you're here though. But you do have this as a quick help for you. And I strongly recommend that you check this out, because there's things that I don't always go over just because of time constraints, but this is a very valuable, always up-to-date resource at your fingertips when you click on the help button. And that's not only for Gmail, but that's also available in your other apps as well. This is where if you're first time using Google Chat, you do have the capability to active automatically. This is your chat availability. So you might want to add a status, like many of us could add a status and say, hopefully you're not out for sick, or you could type in something up here and do so much more. So add your status, letting me know how you're feeling today. This is your search box. This is where you search. But keep in mind, we're not going to do much about searching today. That is probably the biggest learning curve for many of you. And I promise you, we'll dive deeper in that in the future trainings. But what I can give you today with time is don't forget to click on the search icon. The search icon is your friend. If you click on the search icon, you know how to fill out a field. If you're looking for an email from Jolene, type in Jolene's email from the from. Was it to you? Type in your name. What was the subject? Type in the subject. Guess what? You don't have to know all those things. You just need to have at least one. And this will actually bring in the search operators, which you don't maybe think you need to know that. You don't need to know a search operator, but you do need to fill out that field. So if you know from Jolene is an email you're looking for, isn't that the same thing as going to your sent and sorting? But faster. Okay. You'll learn a lot more tips and tricks on that in the future. But in the meantime, hit that search icon. That is my challenge to you. Some other things that have changed in your inbox, if you changed your settings, is notice if I select, before I select an email, notice now I have the word refresh and more appear here. I no longer see the icons or the buttons that maybe I didn't really even know what those icons or buttons really were. Now, if I select Jolene's email, notice I actually know what that is. Archive, which we'll talk more about. Spam, I know what that is. Delete. So now, whatever action I'm taking, let me get out of this, will know what to do. The more button was the 3 dots. A lot of people miss those 3 dots. Here's a little tip for you. Jolene always laughs at me when I say that. When you see ... dots in Google land, it means ... Google's got more for you. So definitely click on that and you will always see that. But if you see 3 dots, that means you have the buttons. If you have the word more, you have the text. Either way, that is up to you. But that is something I suggest that you change to text if you don't know what the icons mean. The other thing we have now is the hover options. If you hover over an email, remember I mentioned that earlier, if you hover, then you have the option to archive, delete, mark as unread, and snooze it. So now when you hover over an email, you have that capability of doing so. Select, I got that. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, indicators. So now you'll notice, you'll notice I have the indicators here. They're like the 2 indicators. Let me refresh. So I have the show indicators now. You can see it has the 2 icons there. That means it was sent directly to me. I don't have one that just has one that was sent to multiple people, but that's some personal indicator there for you as well. Okay. Undo send. How do you undo? This is always a trick. So you would compose an email, you would send it to somebody, you decide, I have a conscience and I sent this email and I'm saving my job. I sent it. Oh no, I shouldn't have sent that to Jolene. I should have bit my tongue. Don't worry, it's okay. At the bottom, depending on your time frame, remember I set for 30 seconds. I need to wait just a little bit longer to have a conscience. 30 seconds, and I'm going to choose undo. Now it will bring that email back. It's undoing it. And there it goes. There's the email that I sent to Jolene that I thought was being sent, but I made a decision to undo it. Now, if I did hit send and I refresh this page or I go off in a tangent and whatever the case may be, that's not going to always be there. Okay. It's only, you got to keep that page alive, because if I refresh this, because I'm still within the 30 seconds, it's gone. So you got to have to be smart about your conscience. Okay. So keep that in mind, because that page is no longer active. It doesn't know that you want to still undo it. Okay. So just be aware of that. Don't want to get myself in trouble. But again, always double check before you send, right? But you do have a little bit of an option if you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have sent that. Oh, I sent it to the wrong person, right? That happens to the best of us. The other thing is, I think that's it for that. Yeah, I think so. Oh, I know the other one. We'll do that later. Okay, so we have taken the tour, objective 2. Now we're going to dive into some of the fun things. We're going to show you some keyboard shortcuts, and then we're going to understand delete and archive and compose. Still got quite a bit to go over. Again, Gmail is the longest training, so hopefully we'll get in the time frame. So with that, we're going to talk about some keyboard shortcuts. So that was one of the things that I suggest that you should enable. Okay. I don't use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but there's sometimes I just maybe I'm on my laptop and I just don't really have my mouse, and I'm a mouse user, and I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to do that. One of the easiest things that I do in Gmail is just hit the letter C. So I'm just going to hit the letter C. So this is a keyboard shortcut. I compose an email. It brought up my compose email. I didn't even have to go all the way over here and click that. I just had to hit the letter C because I enabled keyboard shortcuts. Okay. What's another one? I can hit D as in dog. D as in dog. Now, full screen. I can actually, this is a really important email to my boss. I can actually have it in full screen. And all I had to do was hit the letter D as in dog. Okay. The other one is, I want to show you where you can find all your keyboard shortcuts. The other keyboard shortcut that you might want to just learn some more, like take a New Year's resolution and learn a new keyboard shortcut every week. That's up to you. But let's find you a quick way to find those keyboard shortcuts. So this works. You can just hit Shift. I'm holding the Shift button down. The Shift button is being held down, and I'm clicking on the question mark. Shift question mark. When you do Shift question mark, then you get the list of all the keyboard shortcuts. There's a lot of good ones in here. Obviously, some of them are standard ones. Control Z is an option. Control K, insert a link. Again, there's a lot. I don't want to, this would take a whole day just to go over this. So just definitely be aware that that is a quick way. Yeah, I'm still scrolling. Ways to do that. Some of them is like how to add a, this one. Quick way to do BCC and CCC recipients. Okay. So that is one that people ask me, like, I don't want to click on that. I just want a shortcut to that. So again, if you find something that's a little cumbersome, go here and see if you can find a shortcut to make your life a lot easier. So Shift question mark. And I understand a lot of this is fast, but I promise you, where can you find this information? I didn't leave you stranded. It's in that Google Doc that I've been talking about. Now, this one is not mine. And this is also, I'm going to give credit where credit is due, is Sue Bailey from Department of Health. She has made my life a lot easier knowing this little tip by educating other users. In Outlook, again, Outlook, a lot of people like the free floating window when you compose an email, okay? Well, you actually can do that in the same fashion in your compose window. A free-floating lets you obviously move the window. Well, let's just do this. So this is a tip you could do. So you can actually hold the shift button down. I'm holding the shift button down and I click on compose. Watch what happens. I now have a free-floating window. This gives me a little more freedom. I can move this around, get it out of my way, and so on. Now, I don't use this. I have been using Gmail forever. I never even thought about using it. I would probably use D as in dog, but I can't tell you how many people thought this was like the best thing since sliced bread. So you can do that. Shift C. You can do Shift C as well, or Shift Compose. Now, this is actually, the Shift button is really a Chrome shortcut that's popping a window up, okay? So that's really all it is. So if I would actually go to Compose, and then I decided later that I needed to make it pop up, I could obviously hit the Shift button here and pop it up that way. So you can make the decision at a later time. We need to understand that Shift is actually popping it out into a free floating window. There's a great resource in our Google Docs if you want to learn more, but it's actually a free floating option in Chrome to do that. But that one, a lot of people like. All right, so Jolene, I'm putting you in action. Do you want to go ahead on your end of things, send the delete archive emails from trainer 5? And we'll go from there. While she's doing that for me, I'm going to pull up this Google Doc. Again, just to remind you, those keyboard shortcuts are right here if you want to test them out. And obviously, there's some other really cool resources here, like the 9 keyboard shortcuts in Gmail. You might want to check that out and go from there. And the free-floating window one that I just talked about is there's a Google Currents update on GoogleHelp-Iowa and so much more. As Jolene's sending me the delete email and the archive email, let's just talk about that for a second. Delete an email means that it was going to go to your trash bin, okay? And when you delete an email, how long does it stay there? I always hope people know the answer. If it's going to delete an email, how long does it stay inside your trash bin? The answer is 30 days. So on the 31st day, it's gone out of your own personal inbox, okay, or your trash bin, okay? So how many days? 30 days in your trash bin. On the 31st day, it will automatically remove from your trash bin, okay? So let's see. It looks like I got more emails because you see I have the new and my notifications popped. I have that. So Jolene is doing like the magic on the back end, as always. But she has sent me an email to delete me. Okay, this is an example. I can open up the email, read it, and like, oh, I don't need this anymore. I don't need to worry about cookies in the break room. Don't care. Whatever it might be. Okay, maybe it's spam. Maybe it's something I really shouldn't even open it. Either way. So now I changed my icons to be text. Remember, yours would be the trash button. Okay, yours might be the trash button. But obviously, trash button is the same thing as a delete button. So if I delete it, it's going to go in our trash bin. Okay, for how many days? That's right, 30 days, 31st day, it's gone. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to my trash, and you will see that it's there. Okay, you can also see the message there. Messages that have been deleted 30 days will be automatically deleted. Now, if I made the mistake and like, an important email I should have deleted, no worries. Okay, I can actually click on it, and I can delete it forever if I really thought it was spam, or I can, why do I not see restore? Really? All right, that's throwing me off. Well, I can move. That's throwing. I thought you can restore, but maybe I don't hardly ever delete anything, so deal with me. Well, you can move it back to your inbox. That's not right. But anyway, you move back to your inbox. Okay. You can do that as well. I have to check that out. I'll check my instructions on that. I hardly ever delete, so bear with me. If I delete, I never go back and restore it. But you can move it back to your inbox because that's what you're really doing. Okay. So you can delete it, and then it's in the trash bag, and now it's back in your inbox. Okay. The other way you could do it is you can click on this email and delete it this way. So if you're doing masses, you can obviously select more than one and delete them in the masses. Now, did you know that we have unlimited Google Workspace storage? The keyword unlimited. That also means your email. Okay. So I have this philosophy, and I strongly encourage you to have the same, is that if you have unlimited storage, why in the world are you deleting emails that you might go back to and check? Now, I'm not putting in the categories of your spam and trash and maybe the cookies in the break room. Delete them, fine. But if it's an email that you might refer back to, why in the world are you deleting them? Okay. That's just my opinion, but I think it's a very strong argument. Now, what you're probably like, well, I want a clean kitchen. I want a clean inbox, right? So how do I get rid of those out of my inbox? Well, one option is to delete them, but you know you're taking a risk because on the 31st day, you're no longer going to have access it inside your inbox, right? Inside your email system. Okay, so that's up to you, your risk, but now you know. What you can do though, is you have this magical word called archive, okay? What does that mean? Well, archive by definition means remove the label inbox, or however you want to say it, remove it from your inbox. Okay. So Jolene had an aha moment the other day when we were training this the other day. So I want to understand that your inbox is almost considered, not almost, it is considered a label, right? It's a location inside your inbox, in your email system. So really, archiving an email is either removing the label, inbox, or however you want to look at it, however it gets in that brain of yours, that it's actually removed from your inbox. Okay. Now that we understand that a little bit, what do you mean? Where does it go then, right? So this email that says archive me, we can see that it's inside my inbox. Here's that famous label that Jolene was talking about, or we talked about it. It's inside our inbox. It's in the inbox. So what happens if I remove the label or archive it? I'm just removing it from the inbox. Okay. But this same exact email is also in your all mail. Isn't it? It is in your all mail. All mail, by definition, is everything but spam and trash. Okay. So let me go back to my inbox and let me actually delete this email, the delete me one. Now, do you think I'm going to see that delete me one in my all mail now? No. Notice the archive me is still in my all mail and in my inbox, right? So I'm going to go back to my inbox, and now I'm going to open up this email. That's great. I don't really need to reply to it. I don't need to do anything with it. I'm done. I want it on my inbox though. I can either click on the label and click on the X, or I can click the archive button. And now I'm one less email in my inbox, but it's still in my all mail. So I can actually notice the search key icon up here. Where are you searching? All mail. So my challenge to you is, if you're trying to clean out your inbox, you need to archive them. If you need to have an organized inbox, or we kind of joke around here between Joel and I, if you want a clean kitchen and a clean countertop, right? That's what we want. You can actually clean out your inbox by doing that, by archiving your emails. Okay. It's really important to understand that. Okay. And I have this written down in greater detail. Okay, so my challenge again is to understand archive, try it on a few emails, see where you can find it. And if some of you have labels on it, like it might be in a folder that you might call it, or a label, that same email is actually going to be in multiple places, but it's the same email. And we will learn more of that as we learn filters and rules in the future. But we have to know what archive is. Okay, all righty. That is like the biggest aha usually when I train in hands-on. Okay. All right, the last thing we're going to do is, or we got two more things, is we're going to understand how to compose an email. Okay, so I'm just kind of teasing you with the archive and the delete. We're going to dive into that a lot more when we do filters and rules, but this is just getting the basic understanding. So now what we're going to do is do objective 5, and we're going to understand the compose window. So you could use the keyboard shortcut C if you want, and just do a compose. Notice here you have the compose window. Now, some of you learned that free floating window. You could do the shift C and have it free floating. Okay, whatever your preference is, it's up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull it in full screen just because it's easier for you guys as end users to see it. So what you can do is just take a quick tour. You have the to button, you have the subject line, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and just send an email to Jolene. Now, I could use the keyboard shortcuts that I maybe taught you earlier or know how to find them if I needed to CC somebody or BCC somebody. I could use the Shift C, Shift Control C, or I can go over and select. And in Google, actually, if you hover over it, tells you what that shortcut is. So Control Shift B is the shortcut, so you don't have to move your mouse all the way over there. Okay, so you can just compose that. I'm not going to go over what CCC and BCC is. By now, we've been using emails for almost 20 years. Hopefully you have an idea on that. It's always good practice to have a good subject line. I don't care if you're using conversation view or not, but it's good practice to have a good subject. Okay, be clear and concise, and especially for those that are using conversation view. Okay, keep it unique, keep it identified to the topic. Don't be like my husband and leave in your subject one blanked. Okay, good subjects are good. And then obviously you can compose and type. Now this would be your default text that you have, right? Now notice one of the icons, and this would be one of those star icons, is I recommended that you do not have the send and archive appear at the bottom of your compose window, because a lot of you don't know what that means. Now that you do, you might want to do it, but I give you a little more time to understand archive if that's new to you. But now you just see a send, okay? So just keep that in mind. You also, though, do have that option to do a scheduled send. What would you use that for? Jolene and I do communications on Friday or something, and we would want to do a scheduled send option for all of us. And so you could actually set it for a certain time. So if you're going to be gone on Friday, you can do that, okay? That's a nice feature. Many of you like the boomerang extension. You no longer need it for that particular feature. As we navigate down, sometimes you may see your A highlighted and sometimes you don't, but this is where you access your formatting. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is pretty much basic word editing. We'll talk more about my test tip and trick, but we have the undo, redo, change your font, your text styles, and so much more, okay? All right, the one that many people do not realize, though, is let's say I have a list, or let's just do this, hi, bye. And I would actually want to tab it over, right? And many of us are so used to tab. Well, if I hit tab, you may not realize this, but I'm actually going down here to the menu items. It's not indenting as we're used to. If I hit tab, we're used to indenting that way. But it doesn't work that way. Well, it doesn't in most of these web version of HTML editors. So what you do, though, is you just need to highlight the item that you want. And notice down here, you have a indent more or a indent less. Obviously, I need to indent more. I want to go to the right. And then notice it's moving my tabs. Right? There's my tab that you guys have always been using. So you have these two options down here to indent, excuse me, it's hard word to say for some reason, or indent more. Get used to those icons if they're new to you, okay? The other thing I want to point out is you do have the option to attach files. So many of us still might attach a PDF or Microsoft Word. That's pretty common. Just follow the prompts. I also recommend that you do use links. You do have the option to insert a link. Why not add some flair? So I'm going to go ahead and add a nice little emoji. You can add files directly from Google Drive. So I could attach a Google Drive document directly in there by clicking on the Drive icon. You can also insert an image. You can always do that as well. I'll just pick one here. So then you can, this is where you can insert your signatures. This is where if you have your second hat, manage your signature, so on, you can adjust your signature if you have those multiple hats. So you have that option. Now, I want to give you some really good tips and tricks, and I strongly you to try this out. What you can do is you can actually copy this formatting if you want. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a Control-C. Many of us know how to copy, and many of us do this on a regular basis. We have something we're copying from a Google Doc, a Microsoft Word, or a resource from a Google Sheet, and you're just copying data to put it in an email to send to Jolene or whoever that is, right? So many of us do this in a common or in a daily action. So now I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to show you an example. I'm going to go ahead and do Control-V, which many of us do, or many of us right-click and choose Paste. Okay, this isn't, I'm not training you on that, but that's what we do, right? Okay, all right, well, I don't really need it to be red font. I want this to look a little more professional, okay? Well, I can do option one. I've already pasted it. So now I just want the content. I can actually highlight that text because it just brought over all this mumble jumble, all the indenting, all the HTML junk. It just looks awful. It happens to the best of us. I just need the text. I just need the content. I don't need all that formatting. So I've highlighted it. I'm like, need to clean it up. It looks horrible. I can just go over here and click this remove formatting. I click remove formatting. It almost gives me like, now I can reformat the way I want. It took away all the HTML junk is how I describe it. All the HTML stuff that you don't need. The good news is you actually can do that with less clicks. So I can go back and, again, doing something we all do, copy something from a different source. This time, I can use the keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift-B as in Velcro, or I can right-click and choose Space Special as plain text. You can notice the keyboard shortcuts is the exact same one that I just repeated. So paste as plain text. Wow, nice. I just saved myself like a huge headache, didn't I? The other thing I recommend is to look more professional in your emails is let's go ahead. I'm just going to copy this long URL, and it's ugly. It's completely, utterly ugly. I'm going to copy that URL. It could be a website. It could be anything. In this case, it's a Google Doc, but it's a long URL. So if I wanted to paste that in there, just some people just don't like the look of that, right? Well, wonder if I'm saying, please, you know, like this is how I would do it. Please review this document by fill in the blank, right? So now I think the review should be the document should be the URL, okay? So I can go ahead and copy this URL again, just because I kind of went out of order, right? And I can highlight the word document. This is one way to do it. And I can go ahead and click on the insert link. So what I'm doing is like rich text formatting. So now I pasted by Control-V, or I can right click and paste it in there. But notice the text to display is document. It's not the mumble jumble with that long, ugly URL. It's just document, but it's still going to work as a hyperlink. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, notice if I click on this, it's going to take me to the link that I put on there. Okay. This looks a lot better than this, doesn't it? You can do this multiple ways. I could have pasted the URL, and now notice it has changed. It says change. Okay, or I can remove it, but it says go to link, hit change. Then I can actually go here, text to display. I always hit Control A inside that big box, or I can always double click and I will get the select all option, or right click and select all. Or I could just go ahead and then type in document, and that is the actual link. That is like a huge not really a time saver. I wouldn't say it's a time saver. It just looks so much better, right? So much better. So don't forget that. Let me see if there's anything else I'm forgetting on that. Clear formatting, URL for formatting. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and send it to Jolene just to show you that you don't longer have the archive button. And so much more. So it's not, oh, the other thing I forgot, you do have the option over here on the right-hand side. You have some options to always default to full screen. So if you need that full screen all the time, just make your compose button be that default screen. So you just have to do it once, and then it'll stay a default for future, okay? I'm not going to go over templates and canned responses. We talked about that, where those people that might fall into that bucket might need to learn more, but I have the valuable resources on that sheet. So just find it and walk through it. But you pretty much make a template, you save the template, and then when you're done, you insert the template on a new compose window, on another one, when you're doing it the next month or the next week or the next day. And you can see that that's where you find it, okay? So that's where that's at. There's a few other things. This is where you could check spelling. Sometimes I do print. That is an option from here, but you do have that option here. So I'm just noticing that the 3 dots in Google Land means, hope you know it, ... Google's got more for you. So don't forget the 3 dots. 3 dots equals more. So check that out. We are almost done. We just got some fun shortcuts for you. And I hope that those that are here, I'm so glad that you are. But I hope you try some of these things out and just give yourself some like, oh, that's a good habit. Because what you find is you do the same thing over and over and you become efficient in the way that you want to do it. So don't be afraid to change your settings and going back to it. So we just have these 4 little shortcuts, just going to quickly do. Right click, and right click some more. You'll hear me in the future trainings. Jolene's laughing in the background because I say right click a lot, because right click is a shortcut. You have the same option to right click on an email and look at all the options you have. You have reply, reply all, forward as attachment, archive. Have we not talked about some of these? Snooze, and so much more. One that I wanted to show you is that forward as an attachment. This is a nicer feature. If I wanted to send this email to John that Jolene sent me, I don't have to file print as. I can actually forward the email that I selected, or multiple emails. I can select multiple emails, and I can forward as an attachment. And now notice, then I can send this email to Jolene, and then she would just have to click on that to view it. Okay, so you do have the capability of actually forwarding an attachment. I do encourage that you check out the currents page on learning how it works on the end user side of things after they forward it. So it works fine. You just need to know you need to click on it and not download that EML file. Okay, but it does give you the capability of quickly forwarding those. See, it tells you to have a subject line. So that's one. The other thing is, if you want to go back to this email, it came in your inbox, but you just don't want to lose it and you want to go back to it, you have the option to snooze. We also have the option to snooze from right click, but we do have the option up at the top to choose snooze, and you do have the option to snooze when you hover over. So if you cannot find the snooze button, sorry, there's 3 places to find the snooze button. It's kind of like at home. Snooze, snooze, snooze. Anyway, so you can actually snooze an email at a later time. What that does is it will kind of just take it out of your inbox temporarily until you want it back in your inbox at the top. So it's important to you, again, at the top. So I can snooze this till later today. And what it does is it removes it from your inbox, and I'm going to come back to it when it comes back up. But if I decide to get to it a little bit earlier because I'm on top of my game today, you just need to go over to the snooze label, which is one of your system labels, and you'll find it in there. Okay. Find emails with email subjects. So you can actually right click, and depending if you have conversation view on or off, you're actually going to have 2 email search options. If you have conversation view off, you're going to have search by subject and search by people, by emails with that person. So you're going to have 2. If you have conversation view on, because you're already grouping them by subject, right? You see how like conversation view can make your life a lot easier. You can actually find emails either way, depending on your preference. So I can actually find emails by who? The person I selected. So again, right click, find emails. In this case, in my scenario, find emails by Jolene. And if you don't have conversation view on, it would have find emails by Jolene. Obviously not, unless it's not Jolene you have selected, or by the subject. Okay, so huge time saver, because now it's just like one click instead of actually going up here and searching. But look at, isn't it already doing the search? Isn't it already doing the from Jolene? All works together. All works together. Last thing is star. When you star in the settings, we turned on the star. We compared the stars to the flags in Outlook, right? Slightly different, but same concept in a way. You can actually click on an email and star. You can always open an email and star it there as well. So we got to find the stars. Either way, the star is there, okay? If you click once, if you have multiple stars in your settings, I have 2. Remember, I did yellow and red. If I select it once, it's yellow, okay? If I click twice fast, it's red. If I had a 3rd star, it would be this 3rd star color. So now you can actually, 1, 2, it's red. Red is important. And you actually can search has red star. See? Future is bright. No pun intended. Okay, but that's what we'll learn more about in searching. But the first thing you need to know is to star them. No matter if it's star in the red or the yellow, the purple, or whatever the color is, you do have a starred system label over here. Starred, and no matter what color the star is, it's going to be in that system label starred. So I'm tired. That's a lot of hour and a half talking with a lot of information. But again, I do want to recap, just remind you, a lot of additional resources are inside here. If you haven't checked out the Google Currents page, I strongly recommend you do that. That is on our Google Help page. We do have a community page that has a whole bunch of resources regarding Gmail as well. Again, Gmail is the most used app within our Google Workspace. So I do thank you for taking the time of your busy schedule to learn more, because the more you're effective or efficient in Gmail, your better time management, and you're going to find it very useful in your daily activities. We will post this video on our Google Help training page. It will be posted in our dashboard down here with the updated date. In the meantime, with that, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via GoogleHelp-Iowa, and we're happy to assist you if you have any follow-up questions within this training. With that, I thank Jolene for her valuable time in the back end. And with that, have a great day. Thank you.